I love seeing where everybody's from. It makes it, it helps us know where we're reaching and where we're not reaching with the forum. And hopefully everyone will share the forum topics and maybe get more people on next time as well. So thank you, everyone, for being here. All right, it's 3:30 on the nose. My name is Claudia Summers, and I am the program manager for the National Instructor Forum and part of the Child Passenger Safety Program at the National Safety Council. And I'd love to welcome you to the June version of the National Instructor Forum. We are talking today about working with English second language technicians, mentoring them when language can be a barrier. And as most of you know, the Instructor Forum was created as a collaborative effort between the National Safety Council and the National Child Passenger Safety Board to provide child passenger safety technicians and instructors an opportunity to collaborate on topics related to child passenger safety in the field and to help each other foster the program longevity. We also would like to ask you that if you are attempting to participate in this forum while you are operating a motor vehicle, we've asked that you please disconnect from the webinar now and plan to view it later within the Child Passenger Safety and Learning portal at carseateducation.org. The forum will be posted in the next 1 to 2 business days, and you can watch it there for free at any time. This forum is not eligible for child passenger safety continuing education units. However, you can use this toward a 1-hour community education credit toward recertification. Today, we are joined by Liz Perez and Blanca Villasenor. I hope I said that right. Blanca, I forgot to ask you before we got on. They are both from Phoenix Children's. Blanca joined as a Phoenix Children's Injury Prevention Program Specialist. She joined in 2014 and is a Child Passenger Safety Technician Instructor and Special Transportation Needs Instructor. And she's the only mentor for the Safe Travel for All Children in Arizona. In her role, Blanca is a Senior Injury Prevention Specialist. She's responsible for inpatient consultations and community outreach, and she serves as a resource for families in the community. Healthcare professionals also use her as a support system and transportation providers. Liz is also from Phoenix Children's, and she is an injury prevention specialist there with 14 years of experience in child passenger safety. She is a child passenger safety technician and instructor. She is a safe travel for all children instructor and serves nationally as the child passenger safety advocate for underserved populations for the National Child Passenger Safety Board. As a bilingual injury prevention advocate, she provides education to patients, families, and communities to prevent and reduce child injuries. We'd like for everyone to give a warm welcome to the two of them, and we'll turn it over to Blanca. She'll get started for us.
All right. Hi, everyone. There you go. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and interested in learning about what we know and where our experiences is with working with ESL technicians. Liz and I will be going back and forth on this presentation because we both have a lot of background on working with our community, especially here in Arizona, where there's a high number of Spanish-speaking families as well. And we want to share some of our challenges and some resources and things that have worked with us during this journey with our car seat program here at Phoenix Children's. We want to focus a little bit on the language barrier as well, languages within our everyday lives. That's what we use to communicate our thoughts or feelings. And for most people, they have to deal with at least 1 or 2 or more than 2 languages at the same time. So let's open it up to our presentation. All right, let's see. There we go. So we first wanted to talk about and going a little bit more in detail about what is ESL. So it does stand for English as a Second Language. The meaning of it is the teaching of English to speakers of other languages who live in a country where English is an official or important language. The term ESL has been debated, but for them, I was looking on researching about this topic is because a lot of times people don't like to use the ESL because that kind of puts or it implies that one language is better than the other. and there's a hierarchy within languages. So you might also see referred to as different terms as well. You might see it as a ELL, like an English language learner who's learning a second language as well. But other countries might use the different terms, and these are some of them that you might find here on the slide. Teaching English as a foreign language, teaching English as a second language, and things like that. So just keep in mind that most of these are within the same realm as English as a second language, but the most common that you will see is the ESL. Liz and I are Spanish-speaking natives. That is our first language. And even in my personal life, when I have two kids who are in elementary school and they're learning English, sometimes I go back and I think about how I learned English as a almost middle schooler. So there's a lot of things that happen within my personal life as well that I kind of put into work with my professional life as well. But what I have seen back in the day when I was in elementary school and nowadays is that a lot of schools will have English language programs, and these are to actually help families and students who is their English is their second language. You might see these programs in schools through elementary all the way to high school. Also community colleges as well, and even universities have seen some of these programs offer for students so that they can get equipment and help with learning a second language. In this case will be English. Keep in mind that learning a new language is a skill, just like a car seat technician. When we become car seat technicians, we're learning a new skill. So keep that in mind when you're working with future technicians or already technicians who English is their second language, is that they're probably learning two skills at the same time. So we are going to be going a little bit further as to what that entails. I don't want to go too much into language processing, but I feel like that it was very important to share this information just because, again, when we talk about those challenges, make sure that you keep that in mind, back of your head, that this is probably something that technician whose English is a second language is going through or is just having trouble to process. So it is common to hear that it's easier for children to learn a second language. And at some point I was like, yeah, that is true. However, we don't know the background of it. What research has shown is that children or infants, they distinguish all sounds. So it's like a clean palette for them. They're learning all these different sounds, and if they're learning two languages at the same time, they're learning two different sounds at the same time. Versus with adults, that ability is diminished as you get older. So the ability to distinguish different sounds might be a little bit more difficult for them. So for children that are learning two languages or more, because we've seen families that are learning, they're trilingual at home, it's easier for them to learn languages at the same time. Versus when we go to adults, when they're learning a new language, they are trained and biased with the sounds from their native language. So learning a different language, learning a different sound, your brain is, an adult brain is pretty much biased, and it's just on standby saying, I'm here, use me, instead of having to challenge and to distinguish and learn different sounds. So it is easier for children to grasp that information as to for adults, their native language is always there. We don't really realize that we are learning a language, so that's why for children it's a lot easier for them. For them, it's just they're learning something different. However, for adults, it's a little bit trickier, and our brain is just kind of tricking us to go back to our native language. This does not mean that it's impossible for adults to learn a second language. It's just it might take a little bit more effort from adults just because we are aware of those differences in languages. So immersing yourself in that language, be familiar, talk to people that are native in that language, even probably changing your settings on your social media to a different language. I remember I was doing that for French, and I was actually able to understand my social media settings because that's something that I use a lot, but I did change it to French because I am aware of where those settings are, but looking at a different language on a constant daily basis would also help me. listening to music in that language, or even watch a movie or a program with the subtitles will also help you to understand all those sounds for that new language. We wanted to add this slide, and again, this is just for Arizona, but I do encourage, if you're interested, to reach out to Safe Kids to see if you're curious to see how many instructors are Spanish speaking in your state. But for Arizona, currently there's only 66 instructors, and out of those 66 instructors, there's only 10 Spanish speaking. Keep in mind that these are self-reported. We're not really aware of the proficiency in Spanish that they have. Again, these are self-reported, but just by looking at this, 10 is a very low number. We were very surprised with this number. Just within our department, I'm going to say it's 4 out of those 10 Spanish-speaking instructors. So it's at least for here in the Maricopa County, which is where Phoenix is at. For a number of technicians, there's currently 861 technicians. Out of those 861, there's 152 Spanish-speaking technicians. Again, this is self-reported as well. It's not measured of how proficiency they are in Spanish, but again, looking at Arizona numbers, we are very close to Mexico border, and there we have very high Spanish-speaking families living in our state. And seeing the need of car seat resources for our community, these numbers are really low for us. Let me see. There you go. So looking at those, so who is becoming a CPST in Arizona? And these are some of the areas that we've seen where we are reached out from, and they're asking. We have a staff member who wants to become a technician, and these are mainly people that are having English as a second language. So we have parent liaisons or educators who are mainly that liaison or that connection between the school and the families. And then also we have promoters, promotores, community health workers as well, that are actually out in the community providing all those resources to their families. Some of these workers are also home visitors as well. So they go out to families' homes and they provide all the resources that they need, especially if they're new here in this country as well. And we also found that people who are learning English are also working as community resource standard staff members as well. So these are some of the main ones. Again, it's a one size fits all, not the case. It's just that these are some of the areas that we see as well that are becoming a CPST, and they're learning also a new language, in this case, English. Keep in mind that a lot of the times these staff members who are wanting to become a CPST, they have other responsibilities within their job description. So they're not necessarily focused on just child passenger safety, but this is something that they're trying to add to their plate of responsibilities at their jobs. So it's really important, if you have the chance, to talk to the agency or even their managers or even the person who's becoming a CPST or is interested in becoming a CPST. What are the expectations after they become a CPST? What are their expectations? Are they looking at having a car seat program? Are they looking to offer child passenger safety resources on a daily basis or just as needed? So it's really important, because what we see a lot from these agencies is that there's a certification, let's just have them certify. However, they don't think ahead and what's going to happen next. So having this conversation with the families or with the future CPSTs or even the agency, I think it really opens up of what's the expectation for families for staff to become CPSTs. Here's some of our challenges that we see. And this is just kind of pinpointing a few challenges, but we're going to be talking more in depth in the next new slides. The outdated. So translation of the terminology. There is a terminology of English-Spanish terminology that we commonly most use in the child passenger safety world. and then also having the curriculum is currently in English only as well. Having a small number of Spanish-speaking instructors, again, when we saw those numbers, we were really shocked by the number of instructors. So I'm curious to see if anybody else knows the number of Spanish-speaking instructors in their states. But again, I'm encouraged to reach out to Safe Kids to get that information. Also, the challenges of using offline translations. It's very easy to access now our phones, our internet, and having all those access to those online translations, and what are our challenges and barriers as well of using those as well. And then having those tough conversations, making sure if they have a clear mindset of what entails to be a child passenger safety technician. So it's not just the challenge of passing the course, but also what happens after you become a technician. So for the translation of terminology, like I mentioned before, there is a English-Spanish translation of terms. It was first developed in 2001, and anyone can have access, and there is the link there where you can have access to those terms. We did notice that the last update for these terms was done back in 2007. So again, that's another challenge as well that we've seen. We feel like it's good for an update now. Keep in mind that all the terms that are used in CPST, obviously because they're in English, they're learned in English. So a lot of times the newly technicians will have to learn how to translate or even understand that concept, because there might not be an exact translation of that word into Spanish. So a lot of the times they'll have to do description. They'll have to describe what the term is. So we want to make sure that the newly technicians know the concept of that word. Also, is there a Spanish-speaking instructor? When Liz and I are at a CPST course, we do work very closely with if there's a student there who is Spanish-speaking native, and we practice with them. We do talk about our challenges, what we see as well, just because Liz and I are very immersed in child passenger safety, and also we're bilingual in both English and Spanish. We sometimes do come across with challenges as well. So if there's a Spanish-speaking instructor, practice with them, observe the instructor giving education to a caregiver in Spanish. Just like with anything, I feel like I am a different person when I'm speaking in Spanish, and then I'm a different person when I'm speaking in English. I feel there's a better connection sometimes when I'm talking to families in my own native language, and that happens with anything, right? So keep that in mind. Guide these newly technicians as well to practice. All right, so for the Spanish curriculum, there is a Spanish curriculum which was eventually created after the terminology list was created back in 2001. So we're not really unsure when this was created, but we know it was after 2001. It was piloted. Again, we don't know the year yet. We came across with this manual that was created in Spanish, and we're not too sure if there has ever been updated. So hopefully in the near future, we might have access to a Spanish curriculum, because I think there's a big gap there where we can reach out to more, provide more information on child passenger safety using technicians that speak that native language to the families and are able to provide all that information. So like I said, we don't know too much about it, so I'm curious to see if anybody has more information on this. But what we know is that it was later offered in Piedras Negras, Coahuila, in Mexico, which again, it was a border city along. It is a border city along Texas. So I'm curious to see. I saw a lot of people from Texas as well, what their experiences are in that, and if there's anything known for that Spanish curriculum. But it is very due for an update, and maybe even starting from scratch for a new Spanish curriculum. All right, I am going to pass it along to my colleague Liz. All right, so technology can be very helpful sometimes,
very helpful in regards to when we need quick access to finding a translation of a word. A lot of times there is a lot of applications out there or even just online in regards to translating from text to voice and so forth. But we have to be careful with the use of those online translations. Now, why do we have to be careful with them? Because the translation of the word is not always correct. Now, you guys can definitely see an example that in regards to Slack. Now, I want to give an example of a situation where we were in a CPST course. We were teaching the course. We had actually quite a couple, I believe it was 4 students who English was not their first language, and 2 of them were Spanish. And in one of those quizzes, which was actually quiz 3, we had a student who wanted clarification on the definition of slouching. What did slouch mean? And my coworker and I, Blanca and myself, we didn't respond right away. We kind of looked at each other. It never crossed our mind thinking, well, how do you say slouch? How do we say slouching? I don't know. I've never said slouching in Spanish. And so we were a little bit perplexed in regards to, okay, how do we answer this? So what did we do? It's not in the Spanish translation of terms, just to give you a heads up. It's not in there. And so what did we do? It was just easiest for us to grab our phone and go on Google, and we typed in slouch. What is that in Spanish? And as you can see what it says there, it says flexible, which in Spanish is flexible, meaning the same thing that it means in English. We're like, yeah, that's not what that means in the question. So what did we do? We had no other choice but then to describe it. We actually did it. We said, this is what slouch means. And so just keeping those things in mind, that sometimes the online translations are not always correct, or other times it might be translated to a higher education level. Maybe it could be a higher literacy level than the student is familiar with, or even sometimes the instructor. So those are just certain examples in which this has happened for us. So as an instructor, what am I allowed to do? What am I allowed to do as an instructor? Now, this question is actually found on cert.safekids.org in resources. It's actually in the FAQs for to become a technician. There is a question on here that actually states, what if I am not a great reader, or English is not my first language? So it's important as an instructor, also as a team lead, to know what you are allowed to go ahead and do. So it does let us know that some people do respond better to written questions, while others may not, and they might actually respond better when the questions are asked out loud. Now, this is something that we have actually done, not only with our native Spanish speakers, but also with other languages, Somali and so forth. So we've had different types of native languages, and where we actually read the questions out loud to them. So it is definitely something that we can do. Again, you can find this on the Safe Kids website, and that is something that the instructor team can accommodate. And we do let students know that if there's any type of accommodations that they need or have any concerns, they can let us know beforehand. We even ask that before the course actually takes place. So just so you know, this is definitely something that we can accommodate for our students. It's also important to keep in mind that they're doing twice the learning. We have to be patient. Students sometimes feel pressured. They want to pass this course, just like everyone else. They want to pass this course. They don't want to fail, especially what we have seen is different agencies. They have been, their certification has been paid by their job, and they want to make sure that they're passing, and they feel pressured sometimes. They want to avoid the consequences at their job. They want to make sure that they don't fail. They don't want to fail. Just like each of us don't want to fail at anything. So they definitely feel that pressure. And also the pressure to learn both at the same time, to be an expert on both at the same time. They're learning the English terminology, and yet they're also learning the Spanish terminology at the same time. So they're doing twice the learning. And this is something that reminded me in regards to when I became a technician in 2010. So when I became a technician, I couldn't even look at the Spanish just yet. I had to just concentrate on the English portion part of it. Once I knew that I fully understood the concept, that I fully understood the material in English, then I was actually able to later on go, and this was actually after the the training took place. But it was only after that that I was able to actually concentrate on learning it in Spanish. So just definitely keeping those things in mind. And during the course, they might need that one-on-one support. Are we available to provide that one-on-one support before class, during lunch, after class? And then having the conversations where we have to be honest, and what if this student may not pass the course? What if it's not a language barrier? And this is something that we have encountered. And it actually happened twice to us where it wasn't a language barrier, and the student did not pass. How did we know it was not a language barrier? Because they weren't understanding the actual concept. They were not understanding the actual concept, and where everything actually kind of stumbled was on was it module 4 and 5. So that's definitely our foundation. And they were not understanding that yet let alone it was going to be translated to another another language. So just keeping that in mind, that sometimes we do have to have those tough conversations, and being honest with ourselves as an instructor. How much have I done? Have I provided as much support as I could? How do I know it is not a language barrier? And in our case, we were able to determine it was not a language barrier. They really were not understanding the actual concept of seatbelt systems. Once they're certified, I know Spanish, I know English. I can just put them together, right? It's that easy. Well, it's actually not. So even once they're already certified, they might not feel confident in translating just yet. Just like I gave my own example. I learned it completely. I made sure that I learned it completely well in English first, so that then I understood the concept, I understood what I was saying, and so that I could be more descriptive and actually be able to provide education in Spanish to our families. And actually was even practicing with my own family. The very first time that I actually, before I even taught my first Spanish class, I actually did it with my family. I made a quick meeting. I scheduled everyone to come, my sisters, my parents, my aunts, just definitely grabbed car seats from the office, and I did it at my house, and I did a presentation. I wanted to feel confident that I was actually providing the education correctly, translating it from English to Spanish. So just keeping that in mind, that once they're certified, it's not just that easy from moving from one language to the other. Why? Because there's also different levels of Spanish fluency. Native speakers might catch on quicker. For me, it was just a 2-week kind of thing. Maybe I can grasp it, but I fully understood it in English, so I was able to just catch on quicker. But there are other situations where maybe Spanish proficiency is not as high. Maybe it's not a native speaker. It's a little bit more basic. They might need more time. Or we have encountered the case where we had a coworker who actually mentioned where she knows Spanish, but she did not feel comfortable in providing education in Spanish. Maybe she could one-on-one if needed, but she definitely was aware, and she did not feel comfortable doing the education in Spanish, which was perfectly fine because she was definitely aware, and she definitely let us know, and we wanted to go ahead and support her. And when she felt ready, she was able to go ahead and provide the education in Spanish. And that's where mentoring comes into play. Once they're already a technician, it's important to share that knowledge. Share that knowledge with other new technicians. Connect with experienced Spanish speaking instructors or seasoned technicians who also speak Spanish. Where can I find one? I don't know of anyone. I don't speak Spanish. What if that's the case? I don't speak Spanish. How can I connect my staff or my colleague with somebody who does in my state, in my area? Go on to cert.safekids.org. You can just go find a tech. It has a drop down and you can look for a technician. It even has for instructor candidate, instructor as well, and go ahead and select the language. And there's actually more than one language. It's not just English, Spanish. There's actually quite a few languages on there. And it's actually interesting to see what is available in your area. You can also contact your state CPS coordinator. You can go ahead and log on to cpsboard.org /state coordinators and see if your state coordinator can provide you with who are the Spanish-speaking instructors or technicians that are available in your area. Safe Kids Coalition as well, another resource to go ahead and reach out to get connected. Why it's important for us to mentor and get connected? Because once we are we feel that confidence. We've been doing this so much. We want to go ahead and pass that on to our new technicians. How do you explain lower anchors? How do you actually explain the seatbelt systems? I had a situation, problem solving, just different things that we want to go ahead and empower and support our bilingual CPSDs in our area. And resources. Again, we don't want to recreate the wheel when it's already been created. So what are our resources out there as well? I love visuals. I'm a visual person. I love pictures, videos, just being as very detailed as possible. That's just how I roll. So what resources are available out there that are in Spanish? Now, the very first one, I love it so much. It's a visual guide. It's available on I'm Safe. It's English Spanish. And this is definitely something that I like to go ahead and share with families when I'm doing, whether it's a one-on-one or whether it's in a group setting, or even a staff training for native Spanish speakers. And so what happens there is that I like to use visuals. I'm very a very visual person. There's also DVDs available. Now, keeping in mind, for those of you who knows about the Simple Steps to Child Passenger Safety, a DVD, we know that hasn't been updated since 2014, but it has some pretty good information on there. I think there could be definitely some updates on there, but it's a good resource still. It's completely not outdated or anything like that. So just keep in mind that these are current resources that are out there, and we want to go ahead and be able to use them. Applications, different videos that we can go ahead and share with families, share with the technicians. The more they practice, the more they hear it. Just as my colleague mentioned, the more you hear it in Spanish, the more it actually sticks. And there's also translated handouts as well. And not just about child passenger safety, like car seat safety in general, but also hot cars, vehicle recalls, also other important information that we also share with caregivers. Now we kept mentioning Spanish, but there's other resources available in languages other than Spanish. You can find those on the cpsboard.org in the resource center. You can definitely go ahead and click on there, see what other options there are, just as well as Safe Kids. There's different checklists in different languages such as Pashto, Arabic. So other than Spanish, if there is another technician that you work with and it's not Spanish that you're looking for, again, what are those resources? There are out there. We just have to definitely go ahead and get connected with them. And lastly, this is our contact information. For myself and Blanca as well, you are welcome to reach out to us anytime that you'd like. We love what we do. We're very passionate about child passenger safety, and we are available for just any questions, anything that you might have. Feel free to go ahead and reach out to us. And we just want to end it with, again, supporting our ESL technicians today will help them become mentors for future second language CPSTs tomorrow. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Liz and Blanca. I really appreciate your time today. We're going to move over to a Q&A session. So there is one question already in the chat that I'll go ahead and present to you. If we do not speak Spanish ourselves as an instructor, or at least not proficiently, how do you suggest that we ensure that a student in our class is really understanding the terms and concepts if we're not able to describe it to them in their native language?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And talking about like Spanish speaking families, of course, we are biased because we speak that language. So it's easier for us to communicate with them. But I do want to mention that we do teach car seat classes to our refugee families that come to Arizona on a monthly basis. And we have to rely a lot on on interpreters. And I was reading the comments here as well, as it came up about interpreters as well. But one thing is that if you're familiar with a CPST that speaks Spanish, I would invite them or even see if they want to be part of it. If that's not even possible to do, then I would probably suggest to get familiarized with other resources like what Liz shared, having those videos ready to show them. Sometimes it just needs that click. Like Liz said, something, it was just probably one word that was not really clicking in there. Once we were able to show what slouching mean, it just kind of clicked on them. So having probably those resources available as well to share a few videos in Spanish as well. Going back to interpreters, and I was reading a comment, I'm not too sure from who it was, but saying that it's a lot easier when you see interpreters that you've worked in the past before. And I joke with my interpreters when I teach these refugee classes is that they're probably going to be taking over my job there because they're listening to everything that I say on a constantly basis, on a monthly basis, and they're practically becoming already not technicians per se, but experts on car seat safety. And I tend to read the room as well. Are they really comprehending? Are they thinking about something else? Because again, they're probably thinking about a million things. They're in a new country and things like that. So I try to read the room, what's happening. Are they really understanding? I tend to not overwhelm them with information as well. So kind of like starting putting them information every now and then they once they ask further question, that gives me I keep thinking like, yes, they're understanding because now they're asking a further question from what I said. So try and definitely read the room. If you have interpreters that work with you, share them. And then also interpreters might have a hard time to interpret those words, those technical terms, just like we said before. So having that description ready for it, that makes a huge difference as well.
Excellent. We have one more kind of a question / comment. Would you say, hang on, I gotta pull it back up. Would you say this is correct? An interpreter helps you with the spoken language and a translator helps you with the written language?
Yes. Yeah, the interpreting, you're helping with the interpretation, but with the translating, it's more like the wording. So if you're wanting to looking for a different, I think there's an echo. No? Sorry. If there's an interpreter, will help you with more the verbal interpreting of what you're saying, and the translation would be more of the wording. So if you're looking to translate some of your handouts already, so you might want to look for somebody who has experience on translating versus interpreting, because it's a whole different world out there. I took some classes on interpreting when I was in college, and I was amazed at all the back and forth. I thought I was going to ace all of my classes just because I'm bilingual, but that was not the case. But yes, I would definitely agree on that.
Thank you, Blanca. Marie?
And we want to add one more thing, Claudia, in regards to that when it comes to translation. It's very important also knowing the community that you serve when it comes to translation. Keeping in mind that that Spanish proficiency level. There are times where we have sent through the hospital's interpretation services, and to get a document, a handout into Spanish. Now, because we are native Spanish speakers, we're able to go ahead and make certain suggestions or let them know, you know what, this is even myself, we look at each other and we're like, do you know what that word means? You know what, I have never heard about that, or that's at a higher level. The families that we serve, we need to keep it very basic. So also when it comes to translating handouts and documents, we want to make sure that you understand the population that you're serving. And just like we always say with new technicians, keep it simple. Keep it basic. And same thing with our handouts. And interpretation services doesn't know about that. Our translating services don't know about that. And so that's where, at least for us, that's a benefit, that we're native Spanish speakers and we're able to make those revisions, and we're able to bring it down to a more basic level so that our families can actually understand what they're reading and what we're presenting to them.
That is really important to understand for all of us, especially when you're trying to create social media posts or handouts, things like that. So thank you for that. Marie, go ahead.
Thank you so much. This was great. So much of what you talked about not only applies for our, mentoring for the technicians that we're working with, but also for the families that we're working with and the caregivers that we're working with. So I work in a hospital system in Ann Arbor, and we get a lot of refugee families and a lot of families from all over. So we are constantly working with interpreters. And it's so funny because what we see is sometimes the medical staff cutting corners, like the clinicians, like using Google Translate and doing little things sometimes. And then all of a sudden we'll go in and we'll order, put in an order for an interpreter. And then everybody swarms on the room because they're like, oh, there's somebody here that can actually help us. And then the doctors and the nurses and everybody swarms in, and we're like, oh, wait, it's our appointment time. You can wait your turn. But it's kind of entertaining. But that wasn't what I wanted to chat about. That's just what we see a lot. We found with the simple steps, we also that it was a little outdated. And in the middle of COVID, when we were not going into the rooms or meeting with families and trying to find an answer to providing education virtually, we found that the videos were a little long. And so we have, I don't know if other hospital systems have the Get Well Network in your hospital, but we have something called the Get Well Network, which is like an educational system that it goes right into our hospital rooms, so we can order up education right to the rooms of the patients. And so what we did was we actually created videos, very, very concise. Like, it was a labor of love, let me tell you. But we created these videos with some grant funding that we obtained, and then we kept finding a little pocket of money here and a little pocket of money here to kind of keep expanding. So we started with English and Spanish, and then we expanded to ESL, to Japanese, to Arabic, and to French. So now we have these videos, and they're all just under 5 minutes, rear facing, forward facing, and then seat belts and booster seats. We have them kind of on a YouTube channel that kind of lives within our world, but I'm willing to share the link with people if you're interested in having them, because they are nice, because we can kind of send them out to families. I just sent them out to a health clinic the other day that's not at all related to us, but they're looking for answers for families when they come in sometimes. And just because they're short, we try to kind of condense everything, like what you need to know, kind of, like the things doesn't cover everything that we want to cover every time we meet with families, but it's like the need to knows. But I'd be happy to share the link if people would be interested. There's also some medication safety videos in this channel that you kind of have to scroll past, also in English and Spanish, though. So in case anybody's looking for medication safety, they all kind of live in this one channel, but the car seat videos are all there as well. So I'd be willing to share that if anybody would be interested.
I think that would be great.
Yeah. And I see some people online are asking for it. Absolutely.
Just to put it in the link or in the chat, the link in the chat.
That'll be fine. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And then Danielle Kessinger, she says that there is a Spanish split book that you can also use. You can download that and use it straight from a digital format, or you can print it. And she left the link for that as well in the chat if you're interested in looking at that. We did have one person say that after 17 years that I have not had an ESL technician in any of my CPST courses in Montana. But after this presentation, I feel much better with some basic information that you've provided and the reminders about the resources where there is additional CPS materials. I see that Montana only shows 2 Spanish-speaking technicians and 1 instructor, which makes me think that as a state CPS coordinator, I need to encourage others who may be Spanish-speaking to update their CPST profiles. Absolutely, and make them visible too. That's something that I know a lot of people on the call, their question is, how do I find Spanish-speaking technicians or Spanish-speaking instructors? It's very hard when they're not visible on the system. So, and I know a lot of people have different reasons why they don't put them visible, but that does, hinder you sometimes. So, but the state coordinators do have access to find out this information from Safe Kids and provide it on an as-needed basis with permission from the technician. So that's another option as well. We have another question. I believe it's Anna.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to add on Marie's comment about the hospital. So when I was in the hospital setting too, we would always have the parents upon discharge, especially in the mother-baby units, go through a video. It was part of the discharge plan, and it was on our Tiger system, which is like a shared videos where you can go and request it per room. And it was in Spanish. And what we did at the hospital, we uploaded a video that one of our statewide programs had money for, and they developed it. Now it's outdated, but everyone would get to see that prior to discharge. And living in a border city, Spanish is a lot different compared to like the proper Spanish, because I was looking at the flip chart, the flip book, and some of the terminology there is different compared to what it is like in the border city. We tend to, I guess, call it Spanglish. We make our own Spanish up here, but we've also worked with promotoras in the communities, and our communities, they're very strong Spanish speakers. So we bring them out and we have them come out to like our events for new technicians that are not fluent in English, to make sure that we're providing them the proper language and making sure that they understand it before they take the course. So that has sort of helped us with the new students in the course. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Anna.
All right. Are there any other questions before we move forward? We only got probably about 13 minutes left for the hour soon. Okay. If not, so I want to remind you before we exit the session today that there are resources for you, some of which have already been mentioned by our wonderful guests. But the Child Passenger Safety Learning Portal does have educational resources for caregivers that you might be working with that speak Spanish, as well as technicians that speak Spanish, and that's at carseateducation.org. I know Liz had on her slide, she had the Children in Hot Cars, which is currently in Spanish. It will be revised probably early next year. And then the Car Seat Basics course is not currently in Spanish, but it is, there is the plan to make it in Spanish next year. You also, as technicians, you can receive your CPST CEUs and community education within the Learning Portal, and we do encourage you to do so. There are many on there, and they get refreshed pretty frequently. The National Child Passenger Safety Board, Liz did mention this as well, has the Resource Center that has other language materials available to you there, so that is a great resource for all of us. And then Safety Connection, which is located within the Child Passenger Safety Learning Portal. You'll go to carseateducation.org. And then /safety-connection, and you can actually have virtual car seat checks for caregivers in Spanish, as well as sign-offs by instructors that speak Spanish as well. Safe Kids Worldwide has safekids.org /Spanish with resources for you as well, and NHTSA has a whole bunch of resources in Spanish at nhtsa.gov /ES. So these are wonderful resources, and if you didn't catch them today or screenshot this before I'm moving forward, again, this will be posted on the Child Passenger Safety Learning Portal in the next 48 hours. I want to also remind you that we do have this forum every month, and it changes. The topic changes every month. So in July, we're going to be doing kind of the same thing, but a little bit more expanded. We're going to talk about engaging child passenger safety technicians in your community activities, how to find them and how to engage them in your activities in your communities. This is something that you might hear in these coordinator forums that we have, but this is specifically to those of you that maybe want to reach out to other technicians in your communities. And get them involved. In August, we're going to have a How to Hybrid, a helping hand for CPS instructors. This webinar typically comes out about once every 3 months. It's actually the live version of it. It is also available to you in the Child Passenger Safety Learning Portal as a recorded session. But if you prefer the in-person, or not in-person, the live session where you can ask questions, please make plans to come in August. And then September the 9th, we will have a long-awaited update on the revision of the National Child Passenger Safety Technician Certification course. So if you're interested in what's changing, what's coming up, what's new, we encourage you to register for that September 9th forum as well. All of these are open to child passenger safety technicians and instructors. Now, the August session technically is for instructors, but if you are interested, or if you're an instructor candidate or interested in becoming an instructor, you might benefit from coming to that as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to email us at safetyconnection@nsc.org, or you can contact me at claudia.summers@nsc.org. Right. Without further ado, we want to thank Blanca and Liz again for your time today and your wonderful knowledge. I think everybody learned something today, and I know I did, especially the acronyms. That was something that I didn't realize was really a big thing, and that it's important to think about how you're, presenting those out there in the world. So thank you again for your time and your wonderful information. All right, everyone, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.